The Empress tasted the ambassador's fear before he even opened his mouth. It coated her tongue like copper and ash, and she found it tedious. "Your Radiance," the Valorian delegate stammered, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession. "The Dominion cannot accept these terms. The tribute you demand would cripple our economy for generations." Seylith didn't bother responding. From her crystalline throne atop the cascade dais, she let her gaze drift across the assembled delegates, ambassadors, and sycophants who filled the grand reception hall of the Ascendancy. 300 beings from 47 species, all watching, all tasting of ambition and terror in equal measure. This was her curse. The Neth'vari were empaths of the most invasive kind. They experienced the emotions of others through taste. Every feeling had a flavor. Joy was honeyed wine. Grief was salt and rain. And fear, which seemed to be the only thing anyone felt in her presence anymore, was always copper and ash. She was so tired of copper and ash. "Leave," she said, her voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. The Valorian delegate flinched as if struck. "All of you. The audience is concluded." The hall erupted in confused murmurs. Protocol demanded she hear at least 12 more petitioners. The Council of Mothers would be displeased. The trade delegations had traveled for months. Seylith didn't care. She rose from her throne, her iridescent scales catching the light from the 1,000 floating crystals above, and descended the 49 steps that separated the Empress from her subjects. The crowd parted before her like water before a blade. No one dared taste of anything but fear now. She had almost reached the private passage behind the eastern column when a commotion near the main entrance made her pause. Guards were shouting. Something crashed. A body hit the marble floor. "I said I need to speak with whoever's in charge." The voice was strange, raw, unpolished, speaking the common tongue with an accent she couldn't place. "Someone attacked our ship. We have wounded. We need help." Seylith turned. The creature on the floor was unlike anything she had catalogued in her centuries of rule. Bilateral symmetry. Soft skin in an earthy brown tone. No scales, no chitin, no visible natural armor whatsoever. Dark hair cropped close to its skull. It was bleeding from a gash on its forehead, the blood a startling red against the white marble. A human. She had heard of them, a young species from an unremarkable system, recently discovered, considered too primitive to warrant serious attention from the Ascendancy. "You dare interrupt the Empress's audience?" Commander Velthos had his ceremonial blade pressed against the human's throat. "You will die for this insult." The human looked up at Velthos with eyes the color of fertile soil, and Seylith tasted something she hadn't experienced in decades. Defiance. Clean and bright, like citrus and steel. "Then I'll die," the human said. "But my crew won't. They're innocent traitors. We weren't even in your space when the raiders hit us. 3 of my people are bleeding out on a crippled ship because someone in this sector thinks humans make easy targets." He met Velthos's gaze without flinching. "Kill me if your honor demands it. But help them first." Seylith found herself walking toward the scene before she consciously decided to move. The crowd's fear intensified. She tasted it like bile. But underneath it, from this single human, there was something else. Determination. Grief. And a bone-deep exhaustion that reminded her of her own. "Commander," she said. "Release him." Velthos's blade didn't waver. "Your Radiance. He has violated 17 protocols of approach. The law is clear. I am the law." Seylith stopped 3 paces from the human, studying him. He was injured worse than she'd initially thought. His left arm hung at an unnatural angle. Burns marked his neck and jaw. He had crawled through her halls like this, bleeding, broken, to beg for help, not for himself, but for his crew. Fascinating. "What's your name, human?" Marcus Cole. He tried to stand and failed, catching himself on one knee. "Captain of the merchant vessel Perseverance. What's left of it? And you came here, to the heart of the Neth'vari Ascendancy, uninvited and unannounced, to demand aid?" "I came here because it was the closest port." Marcus Cole looked up at her, and she tasted his pain like shattered glass, his fear like distant smoke. But above all, his resolve like bedrock. "I wasn't demanding. I was asking. There's a difference. The difference escapes me. When you demand something, you expect to get it." He smiled, and it was a broken, exhausted thing. "When you ask, you're just hoping." The Council of Mothers would be scandalized. The noble houses would whisper that the Empress had lost her judgment. The Valorian delegation would take this as weakness. "Commander Velthos," Seylith said, "dispatch a medical frigate to the human vessel's coordinates. Bring their wounded to the palace medical wing." The commander's shock tasted like sour milk. Your radiance, and have the captain taken to the healing chambers as well. She turned away, her scales rippling with colors that betrayed nothing. He will be my guest until his crew recovers. Marcus Cole stared at her. She tasted his confusion, his suspicion, and underneath it, so faint she might have imagined it, something like hope. Why? He asked. Seylith paused at the entrance to her private passage. She did not turn around. Because you asked, she said. And no one asks me for anything anymore. They only fear. She left him kneeling on her marble floor, bleeding human red, and told herself this was merely a curiosity. A diplomatic gesture. A moment's whim. She told herself she hadn't felt more alive in decades than she did with the taste of his defiance still burning on her tongue. 3 days passed before Marcus was well enough to stand without assistance. The Neth'vari healing technology was beyond anything he'd encountered in his 12 years of trading across the frontier systems. They had regrown his shattered arm in a matter of hours. The burns on his neck had faded to pale shadows. Even the chronic pain in his lower back, a souvenir from a cargo accident 5 years ago, had vanished entirely. His crew was recovering too. Jenny and Okoye were already walking. Dr. Pell had been the worst injured, but the palace healers assured Marcus she would survive. What no one could tell him was why. The Empress does not explain her decisions. The attendant assigned to him, a young Neth'vari named Thylon, said for the 4th time that morning. It would be inappropriate for you to question them. I'm not questioning them. I'm grateful for them. Marcus pulled on the simple tunic they'd provided. Its fabric softer than anything he'd ever worn. I just want to understand what's expected of me. Are we prisoners? Guests? Political pawns? Thylon's scales shifted to a pale yellow, which Marcus had learned indicated discomfort. You are guests. The Empress has decreed it. Then why can't I see my crew? They are recovering in the auxiliary medical wing. It would be improper for you to move freely through the palace without escort. Then, escort me. Thylon's scales flickered again. The Empress has requested your presence in the evening garden. She wishes to speak with you. Marcus went still. The Empress? Personally? Yes. Why? The Empress does not explain her decisions. The evening garden was not what Marcus expected. He had anticipated something formal. Geometric hedges, rare flowers arranged by color and species. Everything controlled and catalogued like the rest of this crystalline palace. Instead, he found himself in a sprawling wilderness of bioluminescent plants, their soft glow painting the darkness in shades of blue and violet. Streams of water wound between ancient trees, whose bark sparkled with embedded minerals. Small creatures chirped and rustled in the undergrowth. And in the center of it all, seated on a simple stone bench, was the Empress. She looked different outside the throne room. Smaller, somehow. Her scales still shimmered with that iridescent beauty, but without the floating crystals and the towering dais, she seemed almost approachable. Almost. Captain Cole. She didn't rise. Sit. Marcus sat on the bench across from her, acutely aware that he was probably violating 17 more protocols. Your Radiance. You may call me Seylith. We are alone, and titles bore me. Then you can call me Marcus. Her eyes, large, luminous, the deep purple of a sunset through storm clouds, studied him with unsettling intensity. Tell me, Marcus, why do you taste different? What? The Neth'vari experience emotions through taste. It is our gift and our curse. She tilted her head, the movement serpentine and graceful. Everyone who enters my presence tastes of fear. Ambassadors, nobles, even my own council. They are all afraid of me. But you, she leaned forward slightly, you taste of other things. Grief, resolve, exhaustion, and something I cannot identify. Something warm. Marcus wasn't sure how to respond to that. Maybe humans taste different, perhaps. She didn't sound convinced. Or perhaps you are simply different. Tell me about your world. Earth? Marcus shrugged. It's beautiful. Blue and green, covered in water. We nearly destroyed it a few times, but it's still there. And your people? Complicated. We fight with each other a lot. But we also create things. Art, music, stories. We love, and we grieve, and we hope. Sometimes against all evidence. He paused. We're new to this. Space travel. Other species. Most of the galaxy seems to think we're not worth much. The Ascendancy's official position is that humans are primitive, emotional, and strategically irrelevant. Sounds about right. Seylith made a sound that might have been a laugh. Cut short. You do not argue? Would it change anything? No. Then why waste the energy? Marcus met her gaze. He still found her intimidating. She was an empress, for God's sake. But underneath the scales and the power and the ancient eyes, he sensed something familiar. Something lonely. You didn't bring me here to discuss Earth's strategic relevance. No. She was quiet for a moment. I brought you here because I wanted to taste your emotions again. In the throne room, when you were bleeding and broken and demanding help for your crew, you tasted like no one I have encountered in 300 years. What did I taste like? Like someone who had nothing left to lose, and everything worth fighting for. Her scales rippled with colors he couldn't interpret. It was intoxicating. Marcus felt heat creep up his neck. I don't know how to respond to that. Neither do I. Seylith stood abruptly. Walk with me. I find thrones tedious, and gardens are better for honesty. They walked in silence for a while, following a winding path through the bioluminescent forest. The soft glow painted strange shadows across Seylith's scales, and Marcus caught himself watching the way she moved, fluid and graceful, like something designed for water rather than land. Your crew member, she said eventually. Dr. Ree. Battel. The healers tell me she will recover fully. Thank you. She's been with me since the beginning. Since before the Perseverance. She was my wife's doctor. Seylith glanced at him. Your wife? The word still hurt, even after 5 years. Anna. She died in a cargo accident. Same one that injured my back before your healers fixed it. I taste your grief, Seylith said softly. It is like winter rain, cold and clean and endless. It gets easier. Not better, but easier. Marcus stopped walking, looking up at a tree whose leaves glowed pale gold. Anna would have loved this place. She was always the romantic one. I was just the guy who fixed the engines and ran the numbers. You underestimate yourself. Maybe. Or maybe I just know my limits. He turned to face her. Why did you really save us? An Empress doesn't dispatch medical frigates for random human traders. Seylith was quiet for a long moment. Her scales shifted through colors, purple to blue to something that looked almost like green. And when she spoke, her voice was lower than before. I am the Empress of the Neth'vari Ascendancy, ruler of 47 systems, mother of countless treaties and wars, and I am utterly alone. She didn't look at him. The Neth'vari do not bond as other species do. We do not marry for love. We mate for politics, for bloodline, for the continuation of power. I have had 3 consorts in my lifetime. I felt nothing for any of them. That sounds. Marcus searched for the right word. Empty. It is. She finally met his eyes. When you walked into my throne room, broken, bleeding, terrified for your crew but not for yourself, you tasted like something I had forgotten existed. You tasted like someone who loved so deeply it could destroy him. And I wanted to understand how that was possible. Marcus didn't know what to say. This was beyond anything his experience had prepared him for. Negotiating cargo prices, navigating pirate blockades, grieving a dead wife, those he understood. Standing in a glowing garden, while an alien empress told him his emotions were intoxicating? That was new territory. Seylith, he said carefully. I'm not sure what you want from me. Neither am I. She turned away, her scales flickering with what he was beginning to recognize as frustration. Which is precisely the problem. The Neth'vari do not want. We decide. We acquire. We control. Wanting is for lesser species. And yet here you are. Wanting. She went still. Is that what this is? Her voice was barely a whisper. Is this what wanting feels like? I don't know. What does it taste like? She was silent for so long that Marcus thought she wouldn't answer. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched his hand. Just the tips of her fingers against his, cool and smooth, like polished stone. But the contact sent an unexpected shiver through him. It tastes like summer lightning, she said. Bright and terrifying and impossible to ignore. And I do not know what to do with it. Marcus turned his hand over, letting her fingers rest against his palm. It was an instinct, not a decision. The same instinct that had made him a good captain, a good husband, a good friend. When someone was reaching out, you reached back. Maybe, he said, you don't have to do anything with it. Maybe you just let yourself feel it. Her eyes met his, and in their purple depths, he saw something that looked almost like fear. That, she whispered, is the most human thing I have ever heard. The Council of Mothers was not pleased. Seylith stood before the 7 ancient Neth'vari who had guided the ascendancy for millennia. Their scales faded to silver and gray, their eyes clouded with age and knowledge. They sat in a semicircle of obsidian thrones, each one carved with the histories of the bloodlines they represented. The human must be removed from the palace, Mother Velcoris declared. She was the eldest, her voice like crumbling paper. His presence violates 17 protocols and 3 sacred traditions. The noble houses are already whispering of impropriety. Let them whisper. Seylith kept her voice level. I am the Empress. My guests are my concern. Your isolation from proper Neth'vari society has always been a concern to this council, Mother Thyros said, her tone gentler than Velcoris's, but no less sharp. You have refused every suitable consort. You have produced no heir. And now you shelter a primitive alien in the royal apartments. He is not in the royal apartments. He is in the guest wing. The distinction is meaningless. The smell of your interest permeates the palace. Velcoris's lip curled. Yes, Empress. We can taste it too. Your fascination with this creature is unseemly. Seylith felt her scales flush with colors she couldn't control. Anger, shame, defiance, all bleeding together. My personal matters are not subject to council oversight. When those matters threaten the stability of the ascendancy, they become our concern. Velcoris leaned forward. The Dominion is testing our borders. The Valorian delegation left in disgrace. And the daughter of 1,000 generations is distracted by a creature whose species still considers fire a notable achievement. Humans have achieved faster than light travel. Barely. And only by copying technology they found in ruins. Velcoris waved a dismissive hand. They are scavengers at best. You dishonor yourself with this attachment. I am not attached. The light tasted like ash on her own tongue. I am curious. Is curiosity also forbidden to the Empress? The council exchanged glances. Mother Thyros spoke again, her voice careful. Your radiance, we are not your enemies. We have guided your bloodline since before the first stars were charted. We want only what is best for you and for the ascendancy. Then trust my judgment. We would, Velcoris said, if your judgment was not compromised by whatever chemical response this human triggers in you. You forget, child. I was old when your grandmother's grandmother was young. I have seen empresses fall to lesser distractions. Seylith's hands clenched at her sides. What would you have me do? Remove the human. Send him and his crew away with supplies and compensation for their troubles. Let this aberration fade from memory. And if I refuse? The council was silent. It was Mother Thyros who finally answered, her voice heavy with regret. Then we will be forced to take measures to protect the ascendancy from itself. Seylith did not return to the evening garden that night. She went instead to the highest spire of the palace, where the wind cut like blades and the stars stretched infinite and cold above her. She could feel it, the taste of her own emotions, bitter and confused and overwhelming. 300 years of careful control, of detachment, of ruling without feeling because feeling was weakness, and one human had undone all of it in a matter of days. Velcoris was right. This was madness. But when Seylith closed her eyes, she could still feel the warmth of Marcus's palm against her fingers, could still taste the grief and hope and stubborn determination that radiated from him like heat from a star. One drop of my blood was enough, she whispered to the empty air, remembering an old Neth'vari saying. It was meant as a warning about addictions, about obsessions, about the dangers of tasting something so intoxicating that you could never stop craving it. She understood now. She understood the addicts who had destroyed themselves chasing flavors. She understood the emperors who had waged wars for a single perfect taste. One drop of his blood, one moment of his emotions on her tongue, and she was ruined. The sound of footsteps on the spiral stair made her turn. Marcus emerged onto the spire's observation platform, his human form shivering in the cold wind. He was wearing one of the heavier palace robes, but it clearly wasn't enough. The island said you might be up here. He wrapped his arms around himself. I wanted to check on you. You seemed off after that council meeting. You should not have come. She heard the roughness in her own voice, and hated it. You should not be seen with me. It will only make things worse. Worse how? The Council of Mothers wants me to send you away. She turned back to the stars. They believe you are a distraction, a threat to the stability of the ascendancy. She heard him move closer, felt the warmth of his body even before he stood beside her at the railing. And what do you believe? I believe? She closed her eyes. I believe they may be right. I believe I have felt more in the past 4 days than I have in the past 40 years. And I believe that terrifies me more than any enemy fleet ever could, Seylith. His voice was gentle. Look at me. She did. His human eyes were soft in the starlight, and she tasted his concern like warm honey, his affection like spring rain. "You're not wrong to be scared," he said. "Feeling things is terrifying, especially when you've spent centuries protecting yourself from it. But," he hesitated, "you don't have to do this alone. Whatever this is, whatever we are, you don't have to face it alone. The council will move against me if I keep you here. They have the support of the noble houses. They could force my abdication. Then let them." She stared at him. "You cannot be serious." "I'm completely serious." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand, her scaled fingers wrapped in his warm, soft, impossibly human grip. 300 years as Empress, and you're miserable. You said it yourself. You're alone. You're numb. You're so tired of tasting nothing but fear that you've forgotten what joy tastes like. And you think you can teach me? I think you can teach yourself. If you let yourself." He squeezed her hand. "You saved my crew when you had no reason to. You let me see the real you, behind all the scales and power and protocol. That takes courage, Seylith. That takes more strength than any political gain." She wanted to believe him. She wanted it with an intensity that frightened her. "The ascendancy will survive. Empires always do, one way or another. But you only get one life, even if it lasts 300 years. He pulled her hand toward him, pressing it against his chest where she could feel the steady rhythm of his heart. "That's what living feels like. It's messy and scary and uncertain and wonderful. And you deserve to experience it." She could taste his sincerity like pure water, his hope like sunrise, his care like warm earth after rain. And underneath it all, something deeper, something that made her own heart stutter. "Marcus," she whispered, "I do not know if I can be what you need. I don't need you to be anything except yourself." He smiled, that broken and beautiful human smile. "I've already lost everything once. I know how short life is, how quickly it can be taken. I'm not asking for forever. I'm just asking for honest." She leaned forward, slowly, until her forehead rested against his. His skin was so warm against her scales. "Then honestly," she said, "I am terrified. And I do not want you to leave. And I do not know what any of this means. But I know that when I taste your emotions, I feel alive for the first time in centuries. That's honest. It is also probably unwise. Probably." He laughed softly, and she felt the vibration of it through their joined hands. "But wisdom is overrated." She kissed him then, a human gesture she had only observed, never practiced. It was awkward and strange, and the angle was wrong, and his lips were soft where hers were firm. It was also, without question, the most extraordinary sensation she had ever experienced. When they finally separated, Marcus was breathing hard, and she could taste his wonder like starlight, his desire like flame, his tenderness like the first thaw of winter. "Seylith," he said, his voice rough. "Whatever happens next, whatever the council does, I want you to know that this was worth it. You are worth it." She pressed her hand against his cheek, feeling the warmth of him, the life of him. "Then, we face it together," she said. "Whatever comes." What came was the council's response, which arrived at dawn. A formal declaration that the Empress was to be removed from power for conduct unbecoming her station, effective immediately. What they had not anticipated was Marcus Cole standing beside her when the guards came, or what he would do to protect her. The grand reception hall was packed. Every noble house of the Neth'vari ascendancy had sent representatives. The Council of Mothers sat in their obsidian thrones. Commander Velthos and his ceremonial guard lined the walls. And in the center of the hall, surrounded by accusers and spectators, stood the Empress of 1,000 stars, and one human captain who refused to leave her side. "This is absurd," Mother Valkoris declared. "The human has no standing to address this assembly. Remove him. Touch him," Seylith said, her voice cold as void, "and see what happens." The guards hesitated. They could feel it. Everyone in the hall could feel it, the change in the Empress. She was no longer the numb, detached ruler they had grown accustomed to. She was burning, and they tasted of it. Fire and steel and something they had never sensed from her before. "Love. Your radiance." Mother Thyros rose from her throne, her movements slow and careful. "We do not wish to escalate the situation. But the law is clear. Your attachment to this alien violates the sacred protocols of your station. You must choose the throne or him. And if I refuse to choose, then the choice will be made for you." Marcus stepped forward. He could feel the hostility in the room like a physical weight, But he had faced worse odds on the Perseverance. He had watched his wife die in his arms. He had crawled through these halls bleeding and broken to save his crew. Fear was an old friend. He knew how to work with it. May I speak? The council stirred. Velcorus's scales flushed with irritation. You have no right. Let him speak, Thyra said. Her eyes, ancient and knowing, studied Marcus with something that might have been curiosity. I would hear what the human has to say. Marcus took a deep breath. I've been in this galaxy for 12 years, he said. In that time, I've learned a few things about power. I've seen empires rise and fall. I've watched tyrants declare themselves gods, and then crumble to dust. And I've learned that the things worth keeping aren't the things that last forever. They're the things that matter. He turned, slowly, to face the assembled nobles. You think I'm a threat to your ascendancy because I've made your Empress feel something. And maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe emotion is dangerous. Maybe caring for someone makes you vulnerable. He paused. But it also makes you human. And before you dismiss that as an insult, let me tell you what human means. He could feel Seylith's eyes on him. Could imagine the taste of his emotions flooding her senses. Human means getting back up when you've been knocked down. It means loving someone even when you know you might lose them. It means choosing hope over certainty, compassion over safety, connection over control. He met Velcorus's gaze directly. Your Empress has ruled for 300 years. In all that time, has she been happy? Silence. Has she been fulfilled? Has she woken up looking forward to the day ahead? Has she ever felt alive? More silence. I can't give her power. I can't give her territory or political advantage. I'm a nobody from a nobody species with a broken ship and a crew of misfits. Marcus smiled. But I'd give her something none of you ever could. I can give her someone who sees her. Not the Empress. Not the bloodline. Not the crown. Her. Seylith. The woman who saved my crew because she was curious. The woman who walked with me in a garden and admitted she didn't know how to want things. The woman who kissed me on a cold spire because she was tired of being alone. He turned to face her then, and the hall seemed to fade away. I can give her my heart, he said quietly. And that's worth more than any throne. Seylith was weeping. She hadn't wept since her mother's death, 200 years ago. The tears were strange on her face, sliding down her scales like liquid crystal. But she didn't try to hide them. You foolish human, she whispered. You beautiful, reckless, impossible creature. Yeah. He smiled. That's me. She crossed the space between them in 3 strides and kissed him again, in front of the entire ascendancy, in front of the council that had threatened her throne. When she pulled back, her eyes were fierce. I choose him, she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. I choose this human, this Marcus Cole, this man who tastes of defiance and grief and hope and love. And if the ascendancy cannot accept that, then I will build something new. Something better. Something that understands what he has taught me. She turned to face the council. You wanted to know if I was compromised? Yes. I am. I am utterly, completely, irreversibly compromised by the realization that there is more to existence than duty and power and control. I have tasted joy for the first time in centuries, and I will not give it up. She raised her chin. Remove me if you can, but know that in doing so, you prove everything he said about the emptiness of our traditions. The hall was silent. Mother Thyros rose slowly from her throne. She approached the dais where Seylith and Marcus stood, her ancient eyes unreadable. I have lived for 1,200 years, she said quietly. I have served 7 emperors and 3 empresses. I have seen wars and treaties and the rise and fall of worlds. She stopped before them, and never, in all that time, have I tasted anything like what I taste in this room today. She reached out and took Seylith's hand in hers, then Marcus's, joining together. The laws exist to protect the ascendancy, Thyros said. But the ascendancy exists to serve its people. And I think perhaps we have forgotten that. She turned to face the council. I withdraw my support for the removal. The Empress will remain. Velcorus's scales flushed purple with rage. Thyros. You cannot. I can. And I do. Thyros's voice was iron. The human was right about one thing. We have let our traditions become prisons. Perhaps it is time to let in some light. One by one, the other mothers shifted. Not all of them. Velcorus remained furious, and 2 others supported her. But enough. Enough for the motion to fail. Enough for Seylith to remain Empress. Enough for Marcus Cole to stay. Later, in the quiet of the evening garden, they sat together on the simple stone bench, watching the bioluminescent flowers pulse with soft light. What happens now? Marcus asked. Now? Seylith leaned against him, her scales cool against his warm skin. Now we begin. A new kind of ascendancy. A new kind of rule. One that makes room for... She hesitated, tasting the word before she said it. For humanity. That sounds like a lot of work. It will be. She turned to look at him. But I will not face it alone, will I? Marcus took her hand, her scaled fingers wrapped in his, and raised it to his lips. Never, he said. Not if I can help it. She smiled then, a real smile. And he tasted it somehow. Tasted her happiness like honey and starlight. Her contentment like warm earth. Her love like summer lightning. One drop of your blood was enough, she murmured. What? An old saying, about addiction. About tasting something so intoxicating you can never stop craving it. She pressed closer to him. I thought it was a warning. Now I think it was a promise. Marcus wrapped his arms around her, this strange and beautiful Empress who had saved his crew and stolen his heart. I'm not going anywhere, he said. You're stuck with me now. Good, she whispered. Because I have no intention of letting you go. Above them, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the small miracle happening in a glowing garden on a world of scales and crystal. But some miracles don't need the universe to notice. Some miracles are just two people finding each other in the dark and choosing to hold on.